Hi Pisces, and welcome to your October 2024 horoscope. We have a lot to talk about in October, especially the first half of the month is quite intense, so let's just get right into it. We start off the month on October 2nd with a solar eclipse. This is also a new moon in the sign of Libra. For you Pisces, this solar eclipse is happening in your 8th house, so you might find that you are having a new beginning surrounding sharing resources or around vulnerability. Perhaps you're opening up to somebody close to you and sharing your deep thoughts and feelings that you don't usually share. Or you might be signing on a new debt, a new shared financial situation with somebody in your life. This solar eclipse is conjunct Mercury, and I usually don't talk about Mercury in this horoscope because it moves quite fast, so I tend to keep it out of these horoscopes. But the new moon or the solar eclipse is conjunct Mercury, so therefore you might find that a lot of sort of the new beginnings might be on a more intellectual level or more about ideas, and not necessarily that you are already taking the actual physical steps. And this is usually true around eclipses. Usually eclipses, things might happen to us and we might just need to process and take in what's happening, and then afterwards, once we've had a moment to reflect, then we can go ahead and respond or take some actual steps. One thing that also helps this sort of reflective or introspective energy during this new moon is that we have a lot of planets retrograde. Pluto, Uranus, Neptune, Saturn are all retrograde. So you might especially feel like this is just an eclipse where you need to withdraw, you need to deal with whatever is happening internally. There's just a lot being triggered that needs to be handled first by yourself, reflected on, and then go out into the real world with it. One more thing I'll mention about the solar eclipse is that the sun and the moon will be in the decan, or the third of Libra, that is ruled by the planet of Uranus. And if all of that sounds like a bunch of jargon, the one thing that you do need to sort of think about, or the one thing I am trying to say with this jargon, is that this change, this fated event, this new beginning might come unexpectedly, because Uranus is the planet of unexpected changes. A couple of days later, on October 4th, we have Saturn trining Venus. Saturn is in your first house and Venus is in your 9th house, Pisces. So what you could be feeling around this day is that the pleasures or the fun, beautiful travel that you're doing, or the fun, interesting insights you're getting at your education, at your school, is somehow fueling your identity, is somehow helping you define and put boundaries around who you are, what you stand for, how you want to live your life. And you might find that this works the other way around as well, or vice versa as well. As you define your own identity, who you are, what you stand for, therefore you're also able to enjoy all the learning you're doing, enjoy the traveling a little bit better, because you're able to tailor it so that it fits this new identity, these new defined values that you have for yourself. So if the eclipse was not intense enough, don't worry, because October 9th and October 11th might bring a little bit more of this intensity. This is because on both of these days, we have two planets that you could sort of say are changing direction in their movement. One is that Jupiter, from going direct, starts going retrograde. And then the other one is that Pluto, from going retrograde, starts to go direct. And the reason both of these days might feel quite intense is that it's when a planet does that switch that can be felt quite intensely to us. So it's when a planet sort of looks like it stops moving, or it stops moving forward so that it can start moving backwards. It's at that point where the planet is standing still that we might really feel the intense effects of it. So let's address it one by one, starting with October 9th, or Jupiter going retrograde. For you Pisces, Jupiter is going retrograde in your 4th house. So all of the attention you've been giving your family since actually of May this year, when Jupiter entered your 4th house, all of this attention is now having a sort of reflexive energy, an energy where you want to take some time to reflect, internalize what has been happening, how you've been dealing with it, whether you have been taking all of the wonderful opportunities, all of the wonderful gifts you have gotten in the family or home area of your life, and whether you've been not appreciating it enough, or being a bit haughty because you have it and maybe others don't. And then 2 days later, yes, sorry, I had to do a bit of math in my head. 2 days later, on October 11th, that's when we have Pluto going direct. So for you Pisces, Pluto has been retrograde in your 11th house of community, of future goals and future plans, in your area of recognition. And now that it's switching from retrograde to going direct or moving forwards, it's time to wrap up all of those lessons. Pluto has been in your 11th house for like 20 years, Pisces. So you've definitely been learning about the power of community, the purpose of belonging to a tight-knit community where you align on the same values. You've been finding your power in being recognized, and your power of sort of, standing out and being seen for your unique abilities, and also finding a purpose in your long-term vision. How can you move forward in a path that actually feels exciting and motivating and gets you out of bed? So this is something that you've been focusing on for the last 20 years. And now that Pluto is going direct, you might especially find some event that triggers that again. Some event might happen that is all of a sudden, is almost like asking you, like, okay, let's see, did you learn your lesson? Let's see, you've had a lot of time to practice this. Let's see what you got. Give it your final shot in a way. I promise we are almost through all of the difficult beginning of October. But October 13th and 14th is a really interesting 2 days, because there's a lot of different things happening in the sky and a lot of tense things happening in the sky. We do have one good aspect on these 2 days, which is the Sun trining Jupiter, but we also have two a little bit more difficult aspects as well. While the Sun trines Jupiter, it also squares Mars, and at the same time, Venus opposes Uranus. So let's break this down into terms that hopefully we can all understand and learn how to apply for these 2 days. The Sun and Jupiter are both quite strong planets, planets that love to get out there, planets of feeling great, feeling a little bit inner ego. And because both the Sun and Jupiter are in air signs, you might especially feel like your ideas or your intellect is just like feeling amazing. You have great ideas. You believe all of your ideas will have great potential and will turn out to be great. So there's this air of feeling great, feeling optimistic because of that trine between the Sun and Jupiter. However, I want to give sort of a word of caution, because we do have those two more tense aspects on these 2 days. The sun is squaring Mars, so it might feel like your ideas are way ahead of your actions, your courage, your ability to actually put them in action. So you might really feel that tension between ideas versus actual reality. And because Venus is opposing Uranus, you might also feel this tension between, well, I just want to be independent. I have all of these great thoughts. I want to do my own thing. And yet, this other side of you is like, yeah, but I also want to be accepted and loved and appreciated and enjoy this physical manifestation and body that I have. And for your Pisces, because the Sun and Jupiter trine is happening in more internal houses, the fourth and the eighth house, you might especially be feeling optimistic and excited in terms of your internal world, in terms of how far you have gotten working through some of the limiting beliefs that you have, how far you have gotten in terms of vulnerability and opening up with others. But at the same time, because of that opposition between Venus and Uranus and the square with Mars, you might feel like perhaps your words are just not expressing it in the right way yet. Or you might feel like there is this depth that you have found within yourself, these deep realizations, but your actions still keep focusing on more shallow, more fun, easygoing aspects of life. So there is that tension there for you, Pisces, definitely on October 13th and 14th. Then on October 17th, we have a full moon in the sign of Aries. For you, Pisces, the moon will be in your second house and the sun in your eighth house. So you might be getting a new realization, a new level of understanding when it comes to your finances and when it comes to what it really means to respect yourself and to have self-love and a well-established self-confidence in yourself. Because during this full moon, we also have a sextile between Venus and Pluto, who, if you remember, Venus is in your ninth house and Pluto is in your 11th house. Because of this sextile during the full moon, you might also really be thinking about the pleasures of education, the pleasures of travel, how they are perhaps bringing some new understanding about finances or about self-love. Perhaps you learn a new philosophy in your classes that helps you love yourself that much more. Perhaps you meet people during your travel that really help you step into that self-confidence and self-acceptance. All right, now we're in the second half of October, and while there are a couple of more tense aspects, I do feel like the second half of October should feel a little bit easier than the first half. So on October 18th, we have Venus entering the sign of Sagittarius. For you, Pisces, that's your 10th house. So from the 17th, you might especially be focused on how you can bring more beauty and harmony into your work, into your public image. Perhaps you are literally beautifying the office, the cubicle you work at. Perhaps you are focusing a lot more on connection and relationship in your workspace. A couple of days later, on October 22nd, we have the Sun squaring Pluto. The Sun has reached the last final degrees of Libra, and as a result, it squares Pluto at the final degrees of Capricorn. This is a quite fast transit, so even though it's a more tense transit, it's a square. Because it's quite fast, it might be intense, but it might not be something that impacts your whole life, for example, but something that perhaps does impact you for that day or for a couple of days. The houses that are affected for you, Pisces, is your 8th house and your 9th house. So again, this Plutonian purpose and power in community is coming up on this day for you. Are you being vulnerable with your community? Are you opening up to them? Are you allowing them to also open up to you? And do you really understand what it means to be in community and to also allow yourself to to add others into your future term goals and visions, to imagine what a future could look like together with others standing next to you, whether that's just one partner or a whole community of friends, or just people that align with your values. As I said, the sun is moving quite fast. So the following day, on the 23rd, it enters the sign of Scorpio, or your ninth house. Now that the sun has entered your ninth house, you might find that you are getting a lot of energy and a lot of excitement from the things that you're studying, from the travel that you're doing. And if you're not doing either of those, it could be that you're just feeling excitement and this feeling of aliveness when you take time to, go to the mountaintop and reflect on life. The ninth house is all about our life philosophy. So if you find yourself from the 23rd of October onwards feeling a little bit down, it could be because you're not taking that time alone from others, removed from others, to just reflect on life, reflect on the meaning of life, reflect on the purpose of why we are here, reflect on what are your values, what are you all about. And you might find that taking those moments reinvigorates you, at least for the next month. And while I did leave a couple of other transits, like sextiles, out of this horoscope, otherwise it'd be here for a while, I do want to mention one sextile that's happening later in the month. This is the sextile between Mars and Uranus, happening on October 24th. And this is because both Mars and Uranus can be quite impulsive, quite fast-moving, just sort of come out of nowhere. So even though it's a sextile, I do think it can be quite a powerful day, and that's really why I wanted to mention it in this horoscope as well. For you Pisces, Uranus is in your third house, Mars is in your fifth house. And therefore, on this day, you might find that all of the fun activities you're doing, the hobbies, the pleasures of everyday life are helping you, giving you this sort of strength or boost to be able to communicate more clearly, to be able to handle the craziness of day-to-day life, the fast pace of everything around you. And vice versa. As you are spending time in the chaos of life, moving fast, maybe doing things a little bit uniquely, communicating in ways that are a bit different, maybe a bit quirky, that is also helping you to be able to just enjoy the day-to-day a little bit more, to enjoy the fact that you're sort of running from one place to another and really just sort of living in the moment and finding the pleasures in the chaos. And we round off the month on October 28th with Venus square Saturn. Specifically for you Pisces, Venus is in your 10th house, Saturn is in your first house. So we see that the pleasure and the relationships, the beauty, the harmony you're sort of throwing in your workspace, the hard work you've been putting there to make it into something beautiful, to make it into something harmonious, is positively impacting your identity. It's positively impacting how you're feeling, how you're presenting yourself. Maybe you're standing taller. Maybe you are able to really define even further. It's Saturn in your first house, after all. Define and structure even further who you are and what you stand for. So Pisces, I hope you're excited for October. You have some focus on your family, some focus on your career, and then of course on vulnerability and your own identity, because again, Saturn is in your first house. So a nice mix of everything for you. If you want to look a little bit more into that eclipse at the beginning of October, I will link the eclipse live that I did right here so that you can go ahead and watch it. Thanks for joining me, Pisces. Enjoy October, and I hope to see you again soon.